Today, we chat with two sisters on a hemp mission to reshape sustainable fashion. Kel and Em are the founders of Folktribe Clothing, and today we discuss the detail they go into to ensure their garments are as sustainable as possible, their qualms with greenwashing, and practical tips for how you can not fall victim to greenwashing. Thanks for listening and enjoy the pod.
So tell us a bit about yourselves and why Folktribe Clothing.
So I'm Em, and Kel is here with me as well. So we are based here in the Grampians, Victoria. We started Folktribe Clothing as a response to the devastation caused by the fashion industry, and we aim to create sustainable fashion alternatives for everyone kind of looking for that's interested in fashion or that just wants to kind of create a low impact in their life.
Okay, fantastic. And how is it working together?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we're sisters. We're about 18 months apart in age. We get along pretty well. But I mean, it can be challenging at times. You just need to communicate really well. And we've kind of navigated how to work together in business, so that it's fun.
We've certainly learnt and grown within the business together, and we are spearheading a new territory with sustainable fashion and trying to make sure that it's pioneered in the right way. So we're exploring challenging territory together. So it's fun, but it's at times really hard.
Yeah, for sure. I think like all businesses, it's got its own challenges, and I guess being sisters too, there's always that sort of extra layer of care between you two, because you guys are family before business partners, I'd imagine. So I guess it presents its own unique challenges. But in terms of Folktribe itself, like what's its philosophy towards sustainable fashion? I know you have a bit of a unique take compared to maybe most other brands in fashion and in the sustainable fashion niche. So please elaborate more about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our main focus is that our approach is really systemic and that we're addressing all points. Our attention to detail is over the top, some would argue. I mean, even down to our buttons, we researched what's the biggest byproduct of an industry that's already happening. So we came up with coconut buttons.
Fantastic.
We researched for almost 2 years about what's the most sustainable fibre. The amount of research and time that goes into our business decisions before we come to a result is massive. I think we almost spend more time researching than actually doing. So, I mean, a lot of people would argue that that's not worth your time, but the sustainability is the priority for us, and we need to be sure that we're doing all the right things on all fronts. And that goes for every aspect of our business, whether we're, working in our office or we're getting orders out or creating a new piece, every action that we take, I think we both kind of ask ourselves, what would the impact be if everybody made this choice? And we can happily run our business if we ask ourselves that question and the results positive. So
that's fantastic. I really love that holistic approach. And are there any other little sort of quirky examples that you mentioned, like the coconut buttons and researching about them? Do you guys have any other sort of unique examples that people may not notice if they've got a Folktribe clothing item, or even just in general with the research?
Yeah, I mean, our focus is to try and get people to keep their clothes for longer. So, how often have you ever fixed a zip in your clothes?
Maybe twice. I know, I'm quite lucky. I haven't wrecked my zips as often as maybe other people. I'm more of an open jacket kind of guy, so maybe that's.
So one of our big things that people probably don't really notice is that we don't use things that are difficult to repair. So a button, you don't even need a machine to fix a button. So we just a needle and thread, and you can simply sew a button back on. So we don't use anything that's A, not compostable, and B, not easily repairable. So
awesome.
That's definitely something that people don't probably notice. And it makes our design process really challenging. So like, that would be such a great idea. Oh, you need a zipper. Okay, how can we fit buttons in there?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're beginning to consider biodegradable elastic, and we're experimenting with some of that at the moment.
Yep.
Potentially not as easy to fix, but if we can find something that's really durable, then at the end of the day, our garment is still 100% compostable, which is another probable quirk that people don't know until they buy a piece, and we educate them that, you know, once you're finished with this, either pass it on, or if it's totally worn out, then it's fully compostable.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I really love to hear that. And I guess sort of building on that when we're talking about our overconsumption as a society, what are your thoughts on what's your perspective, I should say, on consumerism now and in the future?
So currently we would see consumerism, it's really based on trends. So that's a huge factor for consumerism at the moment. And the marketing messages that are being sent out to customers are constantly just that they're not enough, and that they don't have enough in their life. So there's this constant kind of, you need more to be more.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're finding at the moment, and we think that message really needs to shift, and it needs to run with this kind of self-love movement as well. So it's empowering people. In the future, we want to see that people are empowered to love themselves and find their style and really cherish, you know, what they have and how they want to represent themselves through their style. So that's kind of where we see consumerism going. Kind of, I think that style is really, really important, and we need to move away from the trend-based marketing and messaging that's being pushed out to the consumer.
Yeah, no, I think that's fascinating, because if you look at Zara, they've got 14 seasons in 1 year that you have to buy, and I think you guys go against the grain. Sorry, what was that?
That is crazy. I didn't know that fact.
Yeah, no.
Oh, sorry, I made that up. 14 seasons. I don't know how many there are, but I meant it more figuratively, just how I sort of. Well, I'm pretty sure they've. Sorry, what was that?
They could quite possibly be more than that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I read a while ago that they bring out new lines every 5 to 7 days, so there could be 2 seasons in 1 year, which is no surprise. You know, we're talking about them. They're kind of the easy target when you talk about fast fashion. But no, I think that was a great point, and I guess now, even with Zara, you know, with H&M, with a few other brands, they are bringing out these more sustainable, eco-friendly, and they're conscious collections. And, you know, I'm doing air quotes when I say conscious, because we are going to sort of move towards greenwashing now. And, you know, is greenwashing the biggest opposition or hurdle, in your opinion, to a more sustainable future?
Currently, yes. So greenwashing is the biggest hurdle that we would see to achieving or moving towards sustainable fashion. Obviously, there's always going to be other things that come up as we're navigating these new territories, but at the moment, greenwashing is a really big issue for us and other brands trying to kind of bring sustainable fashion to the forefront. I think what brands are doing with greenwashing is they're kind of creating this guilt-free buying by the customer. So the customer sees what they're perceives that they're creating these sustainable alternatives, and then they just buy thinking that they're kind of doing the right thing when it's not necessarily actually sustainable or ethical choices.
Okay, yeah, interesting, because I always found that quite a fascinating fascinating concept, because you've got a lot of good-willed people who want to do the right thing, and then they see these, you know, conscious collections and feels that they are contributing, but in reality they're probably still fueling the same beast that is fast fashion, that isn't sustainable. And so I know this might be a tough question, but can you recommend any solutions? Like, how would we sort of help consumers or help brands or help the culture around fast fashion to move towards being more sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes back to what Em really briefly touched on before, and it seems like it's a really loose tie, but when we look at the self-love movement, what it comes down to is people really knowing themselves, really appreciating themselves, and really valuing themselves, and, you know, knowing themselves well enough to be familiar with their style, and then they don't have to buy into the imagery that they're seeing and the marketing that's been put out there and the messaging that you're not enough and that you need to look a certain way to be enough. So, I mean, an empowered consumer is going to trump greenwashing every single time. So I think really the key is the consumer in this picture, that they're strong enough in themselves to ask the questions that need to be asked of the brand and know what they need to buy in their life to express themselves. So I think we're not looking at these pieces of the puzzles that are coming together, but I think the self-love movement, sustainable fashion, people becoming empowered in themselves is such a key to the entire picture.
Yeah, and I think
sorry.
I think kind of if there's a way that we can help people in that and help them kind of identify greenwashing, it's almost looking for that sleight of hand by brands and things like that are doing it. So, they're kind of saying over here, we're all sustainable, and they're using trigger words and things like that. But when you go onto their website, where's the information to back up those claims? It's not something that takes hours of research, but it is so important just to go onto that about page or try to actually look for those key bits of information that back up those claims and those trigger words. And I think another really big kind of thing that customers can look at is just marketing imagery and colours and things that brands use. So often you'll see when they are trying to look more sustainable, a lot of the imagery will be out in nature and the writing is in natural tones and all of that sort of stuff. So when you look at the imagery, it feels really natural and it feels really sustainable, but you actually really need to go and look at how that garment was made and what it's made from. So, I mean, it's not something that's going to take you hours and hours of research and trolling through information. Some of these things are actually quite easy to pick up right from the start.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think education and research is the key point. So I know you guys both touched on research. And in terms of you guys, do you guys have any sort of go-to resources, whether it be learning about materials, learning about production? Like, I know personally I really like Good On You. That they're a great resource, I find. Do you guys have any sort of resource that you recommend or that you go to if you're sort of unsure about a material or a brand or anything to do with fast fashion?
Yeah, I mean, I think apps like Good On You are really great resources for consumers because it's an easy source of information. But for us, what we try to do is find as much information from as many different sources as possible so that we're getting consistent results. Like we can't just explore one source and go, okay, then that's the answer. We try and get as much information from many different sources as we can.
And I think because we are really pushing that, find your style and find what you love, rather than just going on to Good On You and kind of finding brands that you think, oh, these are great. They may not suit your style. So the first thing you kind of need to do is find the brands that you love and that suit your style, and then you can just research them and find out what fabrics they're using and go, okay, well, they're using cotton. Okay, go and do some research on cotton specifically and find out, if that suits you and your lifestyle and what you're trying to achieve. And, you can always, once you find a brand that you like their style, if what they're doing doesn't suit you, you can keep kind of just researching their style and all of that. I mean, you just look at marketing and ads and how it works. They'll bring up brands that are similar in your Instagram feed and things like that hopefully then you'll be able to find one that does suit your style and does also resonate with your ethos.
And you can always message the brand and say, hey, did you know that using cotton uses a lot of water? Is there any way you could use a more sustainable fiber? Or, you could always message a brand because empowered customers empower brands.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. They're all great points there. Yeah, and that last one's great. And you got the whole "Who Made My Clothes" movement or Fashion Revolution Month that occurred recently.
Yeah.
We had lots of people asking about sort of who made my clothes, and it was also really cool this year that there was a big emphasis on what's in my clothes, because that's
Yeah.
also just as important as who made my clothes. So no, I think they're all fantastic recommendations, and you guys have pretty much touched on the last question I was going to ask. But if you want to add anything more to it, I was going to ask you guys, how do we better understand and identify greenwashing as consumers? I know you guys mentioned a few little tactics, but is there anything else that you guys love to mention?
I think there's another, like Emma briefly touched on it, is that, that we see a lot of brands promoting sustainability, and they're showing us that they're using their keep cups, or they're showing us that they're composting, or that they've got a paper-free office and things, and they are super important. Like you need to be looking at your entire lifestyle when we're talking about sustainability, but not to be distracted by those things. Those things are amazing, and absolutely everybody should be doing them, but not getting distracted by those little things going on, and then all of a sudden they're just writing, we use sustainable fibers, going, okay, hang on, give me some more information about these sustainable fibers. Why, how, what kind of resources are they using? Where are they coming from? Digging deeper into that, because at the end of the day, they're a fashion brand, and you want to know about why their fashion is sustainable, not that they're taking their keep up to the office. Much as those things are really important, there's a responsibility for brands to be conveying the information about sustainability in fashion.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Em, is there anything else you'd want to add towards that?
I don't think so. I think it's just reiterating, researching, communicate with the brands that you like Kel said, message them. We often get people messaging us asking about what we're doing or things like that, and we actually love it too. It's so great talking to the customers about what we're doing, and even if they want more from us, we're always, we're not complacent in our brand. We're constantly trying to be better and achieve more. So talking to the customers directly is actually, it's just great.
It's the best kind of conversations you can be having. If your customers want something and you can provide that, brands will love it.
Yeah.
No, definitely, because I dare say they're like-minded customers speaking to like-minded brand owners, so that sync would be amazing. You guys would be having great conversations. Yeah,
it's actually a joy to speak to customers that resonate with us.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, guys. And look, I think we might leave it to wrap up there. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you guys. I'm sure everyone would have gained a lot about sustainable fashion, how to be a more active, sustainable fashion advocate, and I think you gave them some great strategies moving forward on how to be proactive in finding out from brands about how sustainable they are, how sustainable their materials are. So a big thank you for today, guys, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. It really does mean the world. If you like what you heard, please leave a nice review. And if you have any feedback or want to recommend a guest, and yes, that can include You Love Yourself, please email me at jordan@stridestore.com.au.